Frozen toes in Germania, constant drills, terrible wine, and letters home that never arrived. Let's begin with a simple image. A man standing in the mist. It is dawn cold, colorless, still. The sky is gray and pale, the kind of morning that seeps into your bones. The soldier pulls his cloak a little tighter. It's thin wool, worn at the edges, not quite enough for the chill of the frontier. This is the northern border of the Roman Empire, Germania, or perhaps Britannia, anywhere the empire met the unknown, the frontier. Not a line drawn clearly in the sand, but a foggy band of tension, cold wind, and the quiet creak of wooden palisades. A grueling routine, the life of a Roman legionary on the frontier was not glorious. It was repetitive, muddy, and deeply lonely. Each day began with drills. Not in polished marble courtyards, but in frozen fields. They marched in formation, their boots crunching against frost-hardened ground. The sandals, called caligae, had thick soles studded with iron hobnails. Good for grip, bad for warmth. Toes went numb often, sometimes blackened, sometimes worse. Breakfast, if you could call it that, was a porridge of barley called pools. It was bland, chewy, and stuck to your teeth long after you'd eaten. Then came maintenance, sharpening weapons, repairing walls, carrying logs, cleaning latrines. You might expect the soldiers to be fighting every day, but battles were rare. Most of their time was spent waiting for something to happen and hoping it didn't. The letters they wrote, some wrote letters home. They asked for socks, for wine, for better weather. One might read, "I have no news. We are cold. Send woolen undergarments if you can, and olives." The ink would smudge if the hands were shaking too much. Delivery was uncertain. The Roman postal system did not serve common soldiers. Sometimes the letters never left the fort. Sometimes they arrived home, years late. Still, they wrote. The wine that wasn't worth the wait, a common indulgence, was wine, but not the rich, red vintage of Roman legend. Frontier wine was sour, stored in reused amphorae, mixed with water, and sometimes herbs to hide the taste of rot. Drinking it brought warmth, briefly, but more often, headaches. Some traded with locals for stronger brews, thick, grainy ale. The kind that settled in your stomach like bread. Not officially allowed, but common nonetheless. Shadows beyond the walls at night, the horizon vanished. A wall of black trees and unseen movement. Fires crackled in the watchtowers, and soldiers rotated shifts, eyes scanning darkness. Stories spread of ghostly shapes, of strange howls, of sudden attacks that left only silence behind. In truth, it was often boredom stretched over weeks, months, years. And yet, danger never disappeared entirely. Only stepped back into the trees, watching, waiting. Bonds forged in mud despite the cold, the hunger, the endless marching. Men formed bonds. They trained together. They ate shoulder to shoulder. They sang in rough, off-key Latin. Some built shrines near their barracks. To Mithras, to Mars, two unnamed gods who might bring warmth or luck. The officers were distant. Discipline was harsh. But in the evenings, among themselves, the men told stories. Of farms back home, of girls they missed, of promotions they'd never get. The rhythm of their lives was steady, repetitive, a quiet grind against time and terrain. And so, the frontier soldier endured. Frozen toes, terrible wine, letters unanswered, and the endless, quiet wait. On the very edge of the known world, take a moment now to breathe. As we leave behind the muddy camps and icy mornings, we prepare to enter something far more volatile. An uprising, swift and flaming, and almost forgotten. A slow, haunting look at the rebellion that nearly unseated Rome in Britain. Now, drift with me further into Britannia. It is still cold here, but a different kind of chill stirs in the air. Not one of wind or frost, but of tension. Of something building, quietly, beneath the surface. The year is around 60. Or 61 CE, the Roman Empire has taken root in Britain, but the soil is not firm. Beneath the roads and temples, the land remembers something older. And older still, the people remember freedom. Among them, a queen. Her name is Boudica. You may picture her as tall and fierce, but let us begin not with her image, but with her silence, the moment before the fire begins. A queen-wronged Boudica ruled the Iceni, a tribe in eastern Britannia. They had been allies of Rome. But Roman promises were often fleeting. When her husband, the king, died, the Romans seized his land. They flogged Boudica. They harmed her daughters. They humiliated her. The violence was real, but we need not dwell on the blows. Let us focus instead on what rose up afterward. A storm, a reckoning. Boudica did not vanish into grief. She rallied. Word spread across tribes, not just of cruelty, but of betrayal. Spears were pulled from racks, paint applied to skin. Old war songs were sung again. Whispers became chants. Soon, tens of thousands stood behind her, and their eyes turned south toward the Roman towns. The march begins. The Roman governor, Gaius Suetonius Paulinus, was far away campaigning on the island of Mona, what we now call Anglesey. With the soldiers gone, the road to revolt was clear. The rebels struck Camulodunum, modern-day Colchester. It was a Roman colony, a proud settlement, built on confiscated tribal land. The city fell quickly. Temples, homes, and barracks burned into the night. A black smoke curled toward the sky, thick with the scent of scorched grain and timber. No Roman was spared. It was a purge swift and brutal. Again, we need not linger on the scenes. Just know. Rome felt the heat. Then Boudica turned her eyes to Londinium. Excavated notes and letters reveal the mundane yet vivid lives of Roman Britons at Hadrian's Wall. Now, imagine yourself walking northward through low, windswept hills. The land is quiet, open, pale with mist, and there, on the horizon, a wall stretching from coast to coast, Hadrian's Wall, an ancient spine across northern Britannia, built not only to hold invaders back, but to show the world where Rome ended. Just south of this wall, Saturday, a small fort called Vindolanda. It was not grand, not even large. A garrison post, half buried, now in time and earth. But beneath its floors, in dark anaerobic soil, archaeologists found something rare. Not swords, not coins, but paper, or rather, something like it. Thin wooden slats, covered in ink, letters, notes, inventories, invitations, the Vindolanda tablets. Let's listen now to the quiet voices of a world long vanished. A birthday invitation, one of the most famous tablets, was written by a woman named Claudia Severa. It is a birthday invitation, she writes in soft Latin. I send you warm greetings, sister. On the third day before the Ides of September, I invite you to make the day more enjoyable by coming to us to celebrate my birthday. A simple request, polite, familiar, timeless. You can almost hear the rustle of linen dresses, the clink of pottery cups, the soft murmur of women laughing near a hearth. This fragile connection was written nearly 2,000 years ago, and yet it feels so close. Daily logistics and mundane woes. Other tablets are far less poetic. One lists socks and sandals. Another records beer rations. Another complains about grain supplies. Here is one. Send more nails. We are short. And another. The parade armor has not yet arrived. The centurion is not pleased. These are not the voices of emperors or senators. They are ordinary men and women living in mud and stone, trying to keep order. The rhythm of their lives was not glory, but paperwork. Soldiers and family, one might assume that forts were mile-only spaces, but the tablets tell another story. Wives, children, slaves, and servants all lived there too. There were tailors, blacksmiths, cooks. Some soldiers brought pets. One tablet may even mention a puppy. They worried about the cold, about illness, about missing shipments of olive oil. One man writes home to request more cloaks. Another asks about a property dispute. A third seems to simply want news, any news of his homeland. The silence between the lines, and then there are the silences. Gaps in the wood, unfinished sentences. Letters never sent, or perhaps never received. Ink faded, edges cracked. These are the absences that speak loudest. The soldier who never returned. The wife who waited and stopped writing. The birthday invitation, perhaps never answered. But through these fragments we glimpse a fuller picture, not of Roman conquest, but of Roman routine. Not of grand declarations, but of quiet persistence. Archaeology of emotion, the tablets were preserved by accident. Buried deep, wet with the kind of soil that doesn't rot wood. Centuries passed, forts crumbled, walls collapsed, but the words remained. Locked away in the dark, waiting. Now they sit in museums, fragile as petals. You must read them under glass or on careful screens. But in their time, they were folded, handled, read aloud beside firelight. They were touched by living hands and meant for other living hands. They were not history when they were written. They were just life. And so we leave the fort. Let's step now away from the wall. Leave behind the boots, the cloaks, the lists of socks and tents. Let us walk south into sun-drenched courtyards and perfumed halls, to a very different rhythm, a slower, silk-lined pace, to where Roman life unfolded not in tense and cold letters, but on mosaic floors, with legal scrolls, olive oil baths, and fish ponds. Let's take a breath now. And when you're ready, we will begin our final segment, A Day in the Life of a Roman Villa. Olive oil baths, fish ponds, and endless legal paperwork, elite Roman comfort, minus the chaos. Picture this. The morning sun rises slowly over the gentle hills of the Italian countryside. There is no shouting here, no icy wind, no distant war drums. Only the soft rustle of leaves, the bubbling of a courtyard fountain, and the faint clink of a servant setting down a silver tray. You are now at a Roman villa. It's not a townhome in the heart of Rome, but a countryside estate, spacious, quiet, removed from the noise of empire. Let's walk through this place together and gently observe the rhythm of elite Roman leisure. The structure of serenity, the villa, is wide, low, and open. Mosaic floors stretch beneath your feet. Cool, patterned, clean. The walls are painted in faded frescoes. Gods and myths, fruit and birds, and dreamy red backdrops. A central atrium lets in the morning light. It falls through a square opening in the ceiling, the compluvium, onto a shallow pool, the impluvium, which collects rainwater in still, mirrored silence. Surrounding this, pillared hallways guide you through the heart of the house, from reception rooms to private quarters to kitchens and bathing areas. Servants pad softly from room to room. Slaves, often, though some born into bondage, others sold, others simply poor and caught in the vast machinery of empire. They are the quiet hands that keep the villa running. The owner's routine, the master of the house wakes late. He does not drill or patrol. His world is quieter. He may begin his day in the balneum, the private bath. Warm water poured by hand, fragrant with olive oil and herbs, lavender, perhaps, or rosemary. His body is scraped clean with a curved tool called a strigil, warmed with a towel, and perfumed. Not excessively, just enough to be noticed by those expected to notice. Then comes breakfast in taculum, small, simple, bread with honey, dates, maybe a bit of cheese or wine, but not too much. The heavy meal comes later. After breakfast, he may retreat to the tableen myth study. Here, scrolls are unrolled and the day's business begins. Not farming, he has overseers for that, but correspondence, legal matters, and estate planning. Documents must be reviewed. Slaves counted. Crops predicted. Tenants negotiated with. A villa is not a playground. It is an enterprise. The sounds of the day outside, the estate is alive. Peacocks strut near garden hedges. Gardeners whisper as they prune vines. Oxen groan in distant olive groves. The villa's pond glints in the sun, filled with imported fish, some for eating, others simply for show. And in the kitchens, a cook supervises preparations. Lunch pronti mise light. Perhaps cold meats, fruit, bread. The heavy meal cena comes later, and it is prepared slowly. There may be dormice, roasted and stuffed, or perhaps baked fish, soaked in garam, a fermented fish sauce, beloved and pungent. Wine is decanted into ceramic jugs, spiced with honey and herbs, poured and mixed with water. Visitors and conversation some days bring guests. Senators from Rome or old friends from school. They recline together on cushioned couches, eating with fingers, conversing in gentle tones. Politics, philosophy, weather, poetry, land disputes, the strange rumors from the northern frontier. Someone quotes Virgil, someone laughs. Slaves pour more wine. The hours drift past. The evening wind, as the sun sets, the villa grows quieter. Lanterns are lit. The walls glow amber and gold. In the garden, someone plays a lyre. Just softly. A single thread of music against the chirping of crickets. The master returns to his chamber. He may write just a few lines. He may pray to the household gods, placing a pinch of incense at the lararium shrine. He may simply lie back, listening to the evening wind move through the olive trees. It is, for him, a life of ease, but never quite peace. There are always reports from Rome, letters to read, taxes to consider, unrest somewhere far away, but never forgotten. Even the most luxurious villa sits on the foundation of an empire that must always be managed, and occasionally suppressed. Still, for tonight, the fountains murmur. The wine is sweet. And the world feels, for a moment, stable. And now the fire has dimmed. The sounds have softened. Let's return, slowly, to the present, and close our journey together. You've traveled far tonight. From the frozen watchtowers of the northern frontier, where soldiers stood wrapped in threadbare cloaks, to the quiet rebellion of a queen with fire in her wake, to the soft scratching of ink on wood in a forgotten Roman outpost, and finally to the warm, sunlit stillness of a countryside villa where time itself seemed to slow down. At every turn, we have walked the edge, not just of empire, but of memory. You've seen the empire not from its marble heart, but from its margins, from places where roads ended and walls began, where soldiers wrote letters home and waited, where rebels gathered and cities burned, where soft voices whispered across centuries, preserved in earth and ink, and where the privileged lived lives of silken routine, as the world shifted quietly beneath them. The Roman Empire was not just legions and emperors. It was people wearing sandals that blistered, writing invitations that may never have been answered, drinking bitter wine, watching their shadows grow long in the late-day sun. And now, you can let those shadows stretch out behind you. You don't need to remember every name or every detail. Let them fade. Let the distant drums go silent. Let the fires burn down to embers. Let the mosaics of memory rearrange themselves into something soft and slow and still. Here, in the quiet after the story, there is nothing more to do. No duties, no drills. No scrolls to sign, only sleep. The present is safe. The past can rest, and so can you. Good night. You open your eyes before the sun rises. The air is cold your breath, a faint fog in the dimness. You lie not on a mattress, but on a mat of reeds and hides, rough against your skin. Around you, others begin to stir. Your kin, your partner, perhaps 3 or 4 children, and maybe even your aging mother. All sleeping in the same space. There is no privacy. Only shared warmth, shared breath, and shared duty. The hut is a simple structure. A dome of wattle and daub-woven branches plastered with mud. The smoke hole above you lets in the chill and lets out the smoke, though not as much as you'd like. You rise slowly, your muscles stiff. The labor from the day before never truly leaves you. It clings to your back, settles in your knees, curls around your shoulders like a weighty shawl. You stretch, pull on a tunic of coarse flax, and step outside. It's still dark, but the stars are fading, and a gray light creeps across the fields. This is your land. You don't own it, not in the way modern minds understand ownership. But you tend it, you defend it, you plant and reap from it, and it is unforgiving. The soil must be tilled by hand, or if you're fortunate, with a rudimentary plow dragged by a shaggy, patient ox. The plowshare is stone. Everything is stone. And that means slow, laborious, painstaking. The tools chip, they wear, they break. And they must be sharpened again on rough stones, your hands growing blistered and cracked with the task. You bend low to the earth. The movement is repetitive, meditative in its monotony. But it is also backbreaking. There is no ergonomic design, no rest for your spine or joints. The sun rises higher. You sweat beneath simple layers. There's no clean water waiting in a thermos only. A nearby stream, perhaps muddy from last night's storm, or a water jar left uncovered by the children. And speaking of storms, they are your greatest enemy. You live at the mercy of the weather. One early frost, 1 week of relentless rain, and your crops may die. And if the crops die, hunger arrives. Hunger is not rare here. It is a companion, a frequent, unwelcome guest. You grow barley, wheat, maybe some lentils. But you must grind the grain by hand between stones for hours. You inhale dust with every breath. The grit lodges in your teeth, wears them down to nubs over time. By 40, if you make it that far, your smile is little more than a line of worn stubs. There is no sugar, no spice, no oil, save for fat from animals. You eat porridge, gruel, hard bread. Occasionally, meat. Meat is a luxury. But raising animals brings its own challenges. The pen behind your hut is filled with goats, sheep, perhaps pigs. They're essential, providing milk, wool, bone, hides. But they're also noisy, dirty, and they bring flies inside the house. Cleanliness is hard to maintain. Smoke stains the thatch. The floors are packed earth scattered with rushes or straw. Sometimes swept, but always teetering on the edge of dampness and decay. The walls may be decorated patterns etched with fingers or small bones into drying clay. A child's work, a mother's memory. A simple way to bring beauty to a place of necessity. At night, the smoke thickens. The fire smolders more for warmth than cooking. And you huddle again, among family, among lice and fleas, trying to sleep while wind rattles the door and your thoughts spiral into tomorrow's labor. You are always working. There is no rest. Only small moments, sharing a laugh, shaping a pot, watching your child take their first step. But even joy comes with the knowledge. Illness can strike without warning. There are no doctors, no antibiotics, only herbs, charms, and hope. A fever can burn through a family in days. A cough that lingers may become a final silence. Burials are simple. A shallow pit, a cluster of stones. And the rhythm of life continues. Still, you endure. Because this is your world. Because your ancestors lived this way, and your children will too. And perhaps one day the harvest will be good. The weather will be kind, and for a brief moment you will feel at peace. You fall asleep again, under the same thatch, with the same fire. The scent of ash and sweat in the air, and the slow, constant rhythm of a Neolithic life. Welcome to Boring History for Sleep, a place where the past comes slowly into focus, and you can drift quietly through time. Tonight, we're going far, far back, before cities, before kings, before even the quiet scratch of ink on parchment. Back to a time when the sky told you when to wake and when to work. When stone was your only technology. And everything you knew, everyone you needed was gathered around one fire, under one low roof. This is the Neolithic era. The New Stone Age. Roughly 12,000 years ago, give or take. But don't be fooled by the word new. It was still a hard world. No police, no money, no maps. Just the rhythm of your hands in the soil, the scraping of stone against wood, and the long silence of night under cold stars. Let's begin there, with a single day in the life of a Neolithic farmer. You might imagine it's peaceful. A simpler time, with birdsong and berries and soft winds through the tall grass. But imagine yourself just waking up in a hut of clay and thatch, surrounded by the warm breath of animals and the scent of smoke and damp straw. Let's begin. You've walked through fields carved by stone-bladed plows. You've sat beside a man preserved in ice, stood among ancient pillars beneath a sky with no gods yet named, and watched as the first shadows of power took shape beside ritual fires. This was the Neolithic, a world without writing, without money, without borders or maps, but not without meaning, not without love, fear, effort, hope. In those dim, early days, humanity lived close to the earth. Their hands were calloused, but capable. Their days were filled with repetition and reverence. They watched the stars. They buried their dead with care. They gathered, feasted, remembered. Their lives were hard and short, and yet not empty. They left no books, no treaties, no laws carved in stone. But they left us hints, footprints in mud, grains of pollen embedded in clay, carved animals, frozen men, and the faint outline of houses lost beneath centuries of dust. And now, in your imagination, they live again. Tonight, you've walked far, through the throb of ancient drums, through frost and dust, through silence and firelight. Perhaps now, in the quiet of your own space, you feel a little of that stillness, a reminder that the world has always turned, that people have always hoped, and that even the smallest stone may hold the shape of a forgotten hand. Rest easy now, the past is still, and so may you be. Good night, and thank you for dreaming with Boring History for Sleep. We'll see you next time. You've walked through fields carved by stone-bladed plows. You've sat beside a man preserved in ice, stood among ancient pillars beneath a sky with no gods yet named, and watched as the first shadows of power took shape beside ritual fires. This was the Neolithic, a world without writing, without money, without borders or maps, but not without meaning, not without love, fear, effort, hope. In those dim early days, humanity lived close to the earth. Their hands were calloused, but capable. Their days were filled with repetition and reverence. They watched the stars. They buried their dead with care. They gathered, feasted, remembered. Their lives were hard and short, and yet not empty. They left no books, no treaties, no laws carved in stone. But they left us hints, footprints in mud, grains of pollen embedded in clay, carved animals, frozen men, and the faint outline of houses lost beneath centuries of dust. And now, in your imagination, they live again. Tonight, you've walked far. Through the throb of ancient drums, through frost and dust, through silence and firelight. Perhaps now, in the quiet of your own space, you feel a little of that stillness, a reminder that the world has always turned, that people have always hoped, and that even the smallest stone may hold the shape of a forgotten hand. Rest easy now. The past is still, and so may you be. Good night, and thank you for dreaming with boring history for sleep. We'll see you next time.